welcome to another episode of ChequedTV, your source for the latest tips, tricks, and trends in human capital management. Today on ChequedTV, we'll be discussing trends in reference checking with senior consultant Andrew D'Agostino of Chequed.com. We're coming to you today from Chequed.com World Headquarters. They're located right here in sunny downtown Saratoga Springs, New York. And we film a new episode of the series every Friday afternoon. So if you're ever in Saratoga on a Friday afternoon, you want us to save a spot for you here in our live studio audience, please let us know and we'll make sure that happens. On today's episode, we have Andrew D'Agostino. He's our senior consultant at Chequed.com. And Andrew has a master's in industrial and organizational psychology that he earned from the State University of New York at Albany, where he studied under Dr. Kevin Williams, the Chief Science Officer for Chequed. Andrew is responsible for matching the science behind Chequed.com with the specific needs of our clients. So he really makes sure that the predictive nature of our products is working as best as possible for the clients. And we've got Andrew today to talk about new trends in reference checking specifically. So first off, welcome Andrew. Glad to have you here.
Excited to be here.
All right, good. So the first question that we have for you is, just in general, what are the latest trends in reference checking? What's really coming out?
I think there's a lot going on with reference checking right now. I think there's been a move in recent years to move away from the traditional phone-based reference checking, which has dominated reference checking since inception. I think that in theory, reference checking is a great idea. You check into the past experiences of a candidate, which is great information on how that candidate would do well in the future. And you get multiple data points as well. It's not just one person saying, this is how I think that they've behaved in the past. Now it's more about, I've observed these behaviors in the past, and here's how I think they'll do in the future. So moving that forward in recent years, we've seen a lot more automation on the side of reference checking, whereas we've been taking it out of the hands of the HR recruiters calling the candidates' references to ask information, which we know is not working very well. So we put that online. We made it email-based. We made it automated. It's removing a lot of the barriers that really impeded traditional reference checking. We've also seen prediction behind reference checking, which is huge. We've taken assessment logic and psychometric science and placed it in the reference checking process. So we're able to gather a lot more objective data using reference checking than we've been able to do in the past. And the last part of that is we're getting more leverageable data from it, so we're able to take the data that we've collected in the reference checking process and use that to make more informed decisions about our hires and collect potential future hires from that data as well.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Cool. So with all these changes, where in the hiring process is the reference checking now taking place?
I think that's actually a really good question. So I think, in the past when we look at traditional reference checking, it was almost always used at the end, the last step of a process. Because you weren't able to get real information, it became a name, rank, and serial tool. It became a tool to confirm information that we learned up in the job application, the first step. So it really didn't offer a lot of value. So in that case, it was used at the end. With the automation, the prediction, and the gathering of leverageable data, we're able to move the reference checking process more forward in the hiring process. And if you don't mind me digging in a little bit here, that's opened up a lot of doors because you're now able to collect data that's usable to make your hiring decision, rather than just as a confirmation of something that's already known. You're able to collect predictive data such as competencies or traits through reference checking processes, and you're able to collect data for possible future interviews within the hiring process. So it's more not just a back-end process anymore, it's more upfront.
Got it. Very cool, very cool. And as you talk about the predictive nature, is there, what exactly does that mean?
Right.
The automate we get, that helps us move it forward, it makes it simpler. The predictive nature, what's that providing?
I think, it's really exciting what's happening with reference checking nowadays, because we're seeing this shift away from just general questions that a recruiter or a hiring manager would ask of references, that references are uncomfortable giving, or that they can't answer because of legal reasons. We're now able to tie what we know of from assessment science. What are we asking? We're asking competency-based questions now. Things that we know are predictive for future success on the job post-hire, we can now ask pre-hire using the reference checking process. And now we are collecting this data from multiple points in the candidate's history, which is really exciting. So we have this assessment, right, science that says, let's collect this data up front from the candidate. Now let's turn it into reference checking process and collect it from the candidate's past experiences.
Cool. All right. Very neat. It says automate, there's predict. You mentioned leverage. How's leverage affecting things?
Leverage is really great. Well, one, obviously, you're collecting data, right, from the reference checking process, objective competency-based data. So you can leverage that in making your hiring decision. That's the first point. So it's not just confirming information anymore like traditional phone-based references. Now we're collecting data that we can use to make a decision. The second part is you're collecting data that can help you post-hire that you can use in the future. So we can learn about someone's weaknesses and strengths using this this new reference checking process, and can use that post-hire for maybe training and development. And we can also collect the references information. Through automating the process, we can learn a lot more about a reference and can keep their information for future sourcing decisions.
Wow. That sounds like a whole nother episode of ChequedTV right there.
Absolutely.
So
I'm just scratching the surface.
But one of the things it seems to me that would be very appropriate to the leverage part is this automation brings it closer to the front end of the hiring process. And that gives you information to probe into a candidate's weakness or strengths. And is that true?
Absolutely. It's becoming a really powerful asset, the new way of reference checking, into making your decision about a candidate, whether you're going to hire them or not, because they're both useful decisions. You need to know up front whether you want to move this candidate along or not, which has a big impact upon the organization. So we can find out data, maybe you said strengths and weaknesses. If we want to find specific competency information, are they good at making judgment decisions? Do they get along well with others, strangers? Are they going to be good in working with teams? This is really important information. We can collect that from references who have seen these behaviors in the past. They directly know objectively.
Right.
Did they perform this behavior in the past?
Right.
And gathering that information in tying it with psychometric principles through industrial psychology, we're able to provide reliable data. And we can validate that post-hire.
Very interesting. All right. Anything else about trends in reference checking that you'd want to share with us that we haven't been able to dig into, of course, given our time constraints?
I think that there's a whole lot of material we can go into. I think we're going to have a couple sessions here.
All right. Very good. But let's see if there's any questions from the studio audience before we wrap this up. Yes.
How does the reference checking tie into other softwares that companies might already be using? Like if they're using a pre-assessment or something already, if they've already worked with a vendor.
It's a really good question. So you never want the same tool used twice in your hiring process because it's redundant. You really want it to add something over and above another tool that you're using. So in industrial psychology, we call this incremental predictability. So what is it adding to the process? If you have a pre-employment test, maybe a personality assessment, that's great. That's important information that you need to know. But using reference checking technology in a new way that's competency based will add something over and above your traditional personality test. Specifically, the personality test is great, but it's also a self-assessment. It's the candidate is answering questions about themselves. Using the reference checking tool and tying competency information about it, you're getting a large amount of other data sources. So you're getting maybe a supervisor, maybe a customer that this candidate has had business with in the past. Maybe it's a peer. They're all going to say different things and tell different stories about that candidate. It's almost like a 360 pre-hire. That will add a lot more information and a lot more data to make your hiring decision in that pre-hire hiring process.
Great.
Great. Well, thanks very much, Andrew.
No problem.
And that's it for today's episode of Checked TV. Please join us again next Friday when we delve into what sounds like some deeper issues on reference checking. Thanks very much.